My name is Lara Holt, and I'm 30 years old. The day I moved out of my mother's house, she posted on Facebook, "Good riddance. The 30-year-old leech who's been bleeding this family dry for years is finally gone." 568 likes in 30 minutes. My sister tagged almost every relative we have. Aunts, uncles, cousins, people I'd grown up cooking Thanksgiving dinners for, people I'd helped move, people who never once asked me why I was still living there. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I screenshotted every like, every laughing emoji, every "about time" comment. Then I liked them all. I waited exactly 8 days. Not out of fear. Because the timing had to be perfect. They had no idea who I sent those screenshots to, or what I sent along with them. 52 missed calls. All sobbing. All too late. And that's when everything they thought they knew about me completely flipped. Before I take you back 8 years to explain what that house really meant, take a second to like and subscribe and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I need to go back 8 years to explain what that house really meant. When I was 22, I'd just started my first real job. Paralegal at a small firm in Raleigh called Carver and Associates. Entry-level position. Decent paycheck for a girl with no college debt because I'd worked 2 jobs through community college to avoid loans. My mother called me on a Tuesday evening. She was using her quiet voice, the one she saved for when she needed something but wanted it to sound like she was doing you a favor by asking. "I need you to co-sign the mortgage," she said. "My credit score isn't high enough. I've been turned down twice." She explained it like it was simple. Like I was just lending my name. "You won't have to pay anything," she said. "I just need your signature to get the house. This is for the family." I was 22 years old. She was my mother. I didn't hire a lawyer. I didn't ask to read the full contract. I drove to the title company on my lunch break and signed where they told me to sign. She didn't give me a copy of the documents. I asked once, a few weeks later, and she waved her hand. I keep everything filed together. Less confusing that way. Then she said the things she'd say to me for the next 8 years. Every time I asked about anything related to the house, "I handle all the house stuff, Lara. You just focus on work." So I did. I focused on work. I set up auto-pay from my checking account for the mortgage. She said it was temporary, just until she got settled. That was 8 years ago. The auto-pay never stopped. She never asked me to cancel it, and I never questioned it because I thought that's what families do. You help. You don't keep score. But my mother did keep score. She just changed the numbers. The first year, she asked me to pay $400 a month for rent. I didn't argue. I was living there. The second year, she raised it to $550. Property taxes went up, she said, tapping the kitchen counter with her nail the way she did when she wanted a conversation to be over. Third year, $800. Insurance costs more now. By the fourth year, I was paying $1,100 a month, plus the mortgage autopay, plus a rotating share of the electric, the water, and the internet. I didn't add it up at the time. If I had, I would have seen that what I was paying every month covered the mortgage, the homeowner's insurance, the property taxes, and most of the utilities. I was funding the entire house. My mother wasn't covering anything, not a dime. But every Thanksgiving, every family gathering, every phone call with Aunt Tammy, every chat with a neighbor leaning over the fence, my mother said the same thing. "Lara doesn't contribute. I carry this house by myself." She said it so often, with such exhaustion in her voice, that I think she started believing it. The rest of the family certainly did. I know this because I heard her say it with my own ears. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was walking down the hallway toward the kitchen to get water. My mother was at the kitchen table, phone on speaker, volume up. I heard Aunt Tammy's voice before I saw my mother. "Kylie helps me so much," my mother was saying. "She's the only one who really cares about me. Lara just exists here, takes up space. She doesn't lift a finger. Tammy made a soft sound on the other end. The kind of sympathetic hum you give someone when you believe them completely. That must be so hard for you, Denise. It is, my mother said. She dropped her voice to the half-whisper she used when she wanted someone to lean in. But what can I do? She's my daughter. I can't just throw her out. I stood in that hallway for maybe 10 seconds, my hand on the wall, my water forgotten. I didn't confront her. I didn't walk in and say, I pay for this house. I just turned around and went back to my room. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at my hands for a while. That was the first time I noticed. After that, I couldn't stop noticing. She told our cousin Bridget that I didn't contribute a dime. She told the neighbor across the street, a retired woman named Connie, who always brought us tomatoes from her garden, that she was basically raising a 30-year-old. She told Aunt Tammy at least twice more, always on speaker, always in the kitchen, that Kylie was the responsible one, and I was the one who just takes. Kylie, my younger sister, 26 years old, nail technician at a salon in Cary. She lived in her own apartment, visited our mother's house maybe twice a month to eat dinner, watch TV for an hour, and leave with Tupperware containers of leftovers. That was Kylie's contribution. Leftovers. My mother built an entire mythology around Kylie being the devoted daughter and me being the deadweight. And I let it happen, because I believed the truth would speak for itself. I was the one paying. I figured everyone could see that. Nobody could see it. Because my mother made absolutely sure they couldn't. I found a thank you card one morning while cleaning the living room. It was wedged between the couch cushions. Must have fallen when my mother was reading mail. Handwritten from one of her church friends. Denise, you are an inspiration. Raising those girls on your own, keeping the house running all by yourself. The Lord sees your sacrifice. My mother had received a handwritten card praising her for doing what I was doing, and she kept it. Like a trophy. 3 months before I moved out, my sister came over for dinner. She brought a bottle of wine, a rosé, something she'd picked up at Harris Teeter. She set it on the counter, pulled 2 glasses from the cabinet, and poured without asking. She handed me a glass and smiled. You know, Lara, I've been thinking about you lately, she said, settling into the chair across from me. You've been here a long time, and I just feel like you deserve more. Your own apartment, your own kitchen, you know? A real life. She said it with warmth. She said it like an older sister giving advice, even though she was 4 years younger. My mother appeared in the kitchen doorway, leaning against the frame, arms crossed. She nodded slowly. She's right, my mother said. I'm doing better these days. I don't need you here as much anymore. You should go enjoy yourself. In that moment, it felt like permission, like acknowledgement, like they were finally saying, you've done enough. You've earned this. Kylie raised her glass. To new beginnings? I clinked my glass against hers, and I started apartment hunting the next week. 3 months later, I signed a lease on a 1-bedroom in downtown Raleigh. Started packing boxes. Moving felt strange. 8 years in that house, and my room looked empty in 20 minutes. I didn't have much. On the day I carried the last box down the hallway, I passed my mother's filing cabinet. Metal. 2 drawers, always locked. I'd asked about it once, years ago. She'd said it was old paperwork, tax returns, insurance documents, nothing important. I rested my hand on the top of it for a second. Cool metal. I thought about opening it. I didn't. I trusted her. I left the cabinet alone. I wish I hadn't. Moving day was a Saturday. I hauled the last box into my new apartment around 4 in the afternoon. The place smelled like fresh paint and pine sol. I hadn't even unpacked the sheets yet. I was sitting on a cardboard box, peeling the tape off a lamp, when my phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. Then again. 3 notifications in a row. Your mom mentioned you in a post. I opened Facebook. Good riddance. The 30-year-old leech who's been bleeding this family dry for years is finally gone. Below the post, a cascade of reactions. Laughing emojis, thumbs up, hearts. Comments piling up faster than I could scroll. About time. So proud of you, Denise. You deserve peace, girl. She'll come crawling back, just watch. I scrolled through the comments for a long time. I read every one. Some were from people I barely knew, friends of my mother from church, neighbors, co-workers, but some were from people I knew well, people I'd helped. Uncle Raymond's wife had left a laughing face. Cousin Bridget wrote, "Finally." Aunt Tammy liked the post but didn't comment. Kylie had tagged 34 relatives. I counted them. Each name was a person I'd spent holidays with, shared meals with, babysat for, driven to the airport, helped move. 568 likes in 30 minutes. I set the phone down on the cardboard box. I didn't call my mother. I didn't type a response. I sat in my half-empty apartment and screenshotted every single thing, every like, every comment, every laughing emoji, every tagged name. Then I went back to the post and liked it myself. I picked up my phone again and opened Kylie's tag list. I looked at the timestamps. She had tagged 34 people in 12 minutes. I looked at that number for a long time. 12 minutes. You don't tag 34 people in 12 minutes by scrolling through your friends list and picking names one by one. You do it when you've already drafted the list somewhere else. A notes app, a text thread, maybe a conversation with someone who told you exactly which names to include and which to leave out. I thought about Kylie sitting next to my mother at the kitchen table. I thought about their phones side by side. I thought about my mother dictating names while Kylie typed. That's not anger. That's a checklist. And if the tags were planned, the post was planned. And if the post was planned, then the timing, same day I moved out, wasn't coincidence. Which meant the question wasn't why my mother posted it. The question was, what was happening behind the post that she needed 568 people to be looking at instead? I closed the Facebook app. I set the phone face down on the box. Then I opened my laptop on the floor of my half-empty apartment and typed into the search bar, "How to check property deed records, Wake County, North Carolina." If someone in your family has ever called you a leech for simply existing in the house you helped pay for, I need you to hear this next part. Day 1 after the post. Sunday morning. I drove back to my mother's house to pick up a box of winter clothes I'd left in the garage. I'd texted her the night before. "Forgot a box. Coming to grab it." She didn't reply. The house was empty when I got there. Her car was gone. Kylie's car wasn't in the driveway. I used my key. She hadn't asked for it back yet. I grabbed the box from the garage, started walking back through the kitchen, and then I saw it. A stack of mail sitting on the shelf near the back door. Not the usual mail spot. That was by the front entrance. This stack was behind a ceramic cat figurine my mother kept on the windowsill, half hidden. I almost walked past it, but one envelope caught my eye. It was from First Atlantic Mortgage, and it was addressed to Lara Holt. It had already been opened. I pulled the letter out. Single page. Formal. "Dear Ms. Holt, congratulations on your successful refinance. Your new loan amount is $285,000. Monthly payment details enclosed." I read it twice, then a third time. I had never refinanced anything. I hadn't signed a refinance application. I hadn't spoken to anyone at First Atlantic Mortgage about my loan. The original mortgage was approximately $165,000 when I co-signed it 8 years ago. A new loan amount of $285,000 meant someone had extracted roughly $120,000 in equity from the house. My house. With my name on it. Without my knowledge. I didn't panic. Paralegal training is good for something. I photographed the letter, front and back. Photographed the envelope, the postmark, the return address. Placed everything back exactly where I found it. Behind the ceramic cat. Same angle. Same overlap with the other mail. Then I left. In my car, I enlarged the photo of the signature page on my phone. There was a signature line for the borrower. It read, Lara Holt, in blue ink. But the L was too round. The H was too straight. The spacing between the first and last name was wider than I write it. And the A at the end of Lara looped upward. Mine loops down. I drove back to my apartment, pulled up the lease I'd signed for this place just 2 weeks earlier, put both signatures side by side on my laptop screen. Different slant, different pressure, different letter formation, different baseline, not even close. Someone had forged my signature to refinance my house and extract $120,000. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. I didn't call anyone. I didn't text anyone. I just looked at those two signatures side by side and thought about my mother's filing cabinet. The one that was always locked. The one she said was just old paperwork. I sat with those two images on my screen for a long time, the forged signature and my real one, side by side, like a spot the difference game, except the difference was a felony. At work, I catch forged signatures maybe 3 or 4 times a year, usually on loan documents, sometimes on property transfers. Every time, I flag it, pass it to the senior attorney, and move on with my day. It's routine. Clinical. Just part of the job. But this was my name, my hand, my identity. Someone, and I knew who, had sat down with a piece of paper and practiced writing my name until it looked close enough. Then they'd signed a legal document worth $285,000 and handed it to a notary. I thought about my mother's filing cabinet, the one that was always locked. The one she said contained old paperwork. I thought about every time she'd told me to just focus on work when I asked about the house. Every time she'd said, I handle all the house stuff. She wasn't being helpful. She was blocking my line of sight. I read contracts for other people every single day. I catch forgeries for a living. But I never once looked at the paperwork on my own home. Because it was my mother's house. Because she was my mother. Because I believed that family was the one place where you didn't need to verify anything. Day 3. I called the Wake County Register of Deeds from my lunch break at work. I requested the current deed record for the property on Millbrook Road. The electronic copy arrived the next morning. I opened the PDF at my kitchen table at 6 a.m. with a cup of coffee I never drank. The property, previously held by Denise Holt and Lara Holt, had been transferred to the sole ownership of Kylie Holt. Effective date, 2 weeks before I moved out. My name was gone. Removed with a signature that wasn't mine on a transfer deed I never saw. I looked at the date 3 times. 2 weeks before I moved out. Not after. Before. The timeline clicked into place with a sound I could almost hear. Kylie told me to move out 3 months before I left. My mother got nicer 6 months before that. The refinance happened 6 months ago. The deed transfer was executed 2 weeks before my moving day, and the Facebook post went up the moment I was gone. This wasn't my mother reacting to me leaving. This wasn't a spontaneous burst of resentment. Me leaving was part of the plan. The Facebook post was the final step. The public ceremony confirming a narrative she'd spent years building. Time to the day I could no longer see what had been done to the paperwork behind my back. I checked my credit report at work that afternoon. There it was. A hard inquiry from First Atlantic Mortgage, dated 6 months prior. I never authorized it. My credit had been pulled without my knowledge for a loan I never applied for. Another piece, another thread. Day 5. I called my Aunt Tammy. I kept my voice even, conversational. I wasn't calling to confront her. I was calling to confirm what I already suspected. Tammy, has Mom mentioned anything about the house to you lately? There was a pause. Then Tammy answered in the warm, slightly pitying tone she always used with me, the same voice she'd used on the phone that Sunday when she told my mother it must be so hard. Oh, honey, your mom told me you agreed to sign the house over to Kylie. She said you two talked about it. Said you didn't want the responsibility anymore, that it was just too much for you. I held the phone against my ear and didn't speak for a few seconds. She said I agreed. I repeated. Well, yes. She said you two sat down and discussed it, that you wanted a clean break, a fresh start. My mother had told the entire extended family, or at least the part of it that mattered, that I had voluntarily given up the house I had co-signed, the house I had paid for, the house she had transferred to my sister using my forged signature. And the story she told was so clean, so reasonable, that nobody questioned it. Why would they? Denise always had the story first. Thanks, Tammy, I said. That's what I needed to know. I didn't argue. I didn't correct her. Not yet. If I told Tammy the truth now, Tammy would call my mother, and my mother would have time to prepare, to spin, to counter. I'd watched her do it my entire life. Instead, I hung up and submitted a request to the United States Postal Service for mail forwarding records associated with my name at the Millbrook Road address. Something had been bothering me since I found that refinance letter. For 6 months, I hadn't received a single piece of mail from First Atlantic Mortgage. No statements, no tax documents, no correspondence of any kind. 6 months of silence on a loan with my name on it. The USPS records came back electronically within 48 hours. A change of address form had been filed 14 months earlier. All mail addressed to Lara Holt at the Millbrook Road property had been forwarded to an apartment at 2204 Walnut Street, Cary, North Carolina. Kylie's apartment. Filed by K. Holt. I read it 3 times. 14 months. That meant Kylie had set up the mail redirect 8 months before the refinance was even filed. She was rerouting my mail before the fraud started. She wasn't reacting to the plan. She was building the infrastructure for it. My sister hadn't just tagged 34 relatives on a Facebook post. She'd been intercepting my mail for over a year. Every mortgage statement, every property tax notice, every piece of correspondence that might have tipped me off, all of it had been going to Kylie's kitchen counter instead of mine. I also checked Kylie's apartment lease through public records. She'd signed it the same month as the refinance. Before that, she'd been living in a studio in Durham. She upgraded to a nicer place in Cary. New apartment, new address, new car. All funded by my equity. Day 6. I requested the disbursement records from First Atlantic Mortgage for the refinance transaction. The $120,000 extracted from the equity had been wired to a single bank account ending in 8831. Not my mother's regular checking account at Wells Fargo, not mine. I searched. Account 8831 was held at Pinnacle Credit Union, a joint account. Account holders, Denise Holt and Kylie Holt. $120,000, my equity, pulled with my forged signature, deposited into a joint account I never knew existed. Held by the 2 people who had just called me a leech in front of 568 people. I thought about Kylie's new car, the black Dodge Charger she'd bought 4 months ago. She'd told me her manager at the salon had given her a raise. Finally making real money, she'd said, grinning, keys dangling from her finger. It wasn't a raise. It was my house. I sat at my kitchen table and laid it all out. The refinance documents with the forged signature, the deed transfer removing my name, the USPS mail forwarding filed by Kylie 14 months ago, the joint account at Pinnacle Credit Union, the $120,000 disbursement, The unauthorized credit inquiry. Kylie's apartment lease, signed the same month as the refinance, and 568 screenshots of a Facebook post calling me a leech. Posted on the same day my mother completed the theft of my home. I put it all in a binder. Tab divided. Color-coded. Chronological. The same way I organize case files at Carver and Associates. My coworker Megan walked past my desk that afternoon and saw me staring at the binder. She's a paralegal too. 33. Direct. She looked at the tabs, looked at my face, and sat down. "What is that?" I told her. "All of it." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I've thought about every day since. "You know what's messed up? She didn't even need the money, Lara. She needed you to not have it. If you had that equity, you'd never need to come back." I looked at her. She was right. The $120,000 wasn't just theft. It was insurance. My mother didn't just want the money. She wanted to make sure I had nothing to fall back on. Because a daughter with savings is a daughter who can leave forever. She'd taken my money and my exit strategy in the same transaction. I picked up the phone and called Scott Mercer. Scott Mercer is a real estate attorney with an office on Fayetteville Street in downtown Raleigh. I found him through a senior attorney at Carver and Associates who'd worked with him on a boundary dispute case 3 years earlier. "He handles fraud," my boss said when I asked. "The real kind." Day 7. I sat across from Scott in a small conference room with glass walls, a fake plant in the corner, and fluorescent lighting that hummed. I placed the binder on the table between us. "Everything is organized chronologically," I said. "Refinance documents with forged signature, deed transfer, signature comparison, USPS mail forwarding records, bank statements showing the disbursement, credit report showing the unauthorized inquiry, and the Facebook screenshots." Scott opened the binder. He read the way lawyers read. Not front to back, but jumping to the parts that matter. He stopped at the signature comparison page first, held it up, angled it toward the window light. "This isn't even close to your handwriting," he said. He didn't say it like a question. He turned to the Facebook screenshots, read the post, read the comments, checked the date, checked the deed transfer date, looked up at me. "She posted this on the same day she filed the deed transfer?" "Same day I moved out," I said. "The deed was executed 2 weeks earlier." He turned a few more pages, stopped at the USPS records, at the joint account, at the disbursement. Then he closed the binder, set it on the table, took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Ms. Holt, I want to be very clear about what I'm looking at. This is not a family argument. This is not a misunderstanding about who pays the bills. This is fraud. Multiple potential felonies. Forgery of notarized documents. Fraudulent conveyance of real property. Unauthorized use of your identity for a credit application. Possible wire fraud depending on how the funds were transferred." He paused. "Let it land. I'll draft a cease and desist letter and file for an emergency judicial freeze on the deed transfer and any accounts tied to the Pinnacle Credit Union funds. I'll also request that your mother and sister attend a formal meeting with their attorney, if they have one." I nodded. "One more thing," he said. "Based on what I'm seeing, I'd recommend we subpoena their phone records as part of the discovery process. People who plan something this coordinated usually communicate about it." I agreed. For 8 years, everyone in my family believed I was the problem. It took a stranger with a law degree 15 minutes with a binder to see who really was. Day 8. I sat at my kitchen table and composed an email. I attached the Facebook screenshots, the deed transfer document, the forged signature comparison, and the bank statement showing the Pinnacle Credit Union joint account with both my mother's and Kylie's names on it. I typed a short message. "Tammy. This is what actually happened. I did not agree to anything. My signature was forged. Please look at the documents." I hovered over the send button for 3 seconds. Then I pressed it. 23 minutes later, my phone rang. Tammy's voice was completely different from the last time we spoke. Lower. Thinner. Like she'd been reading something that made her forget how to breathe normally. Lara. Honey. Is this real? This signature? This isn't yours? No. And the bank account? Denise and Kylie? Together? Yes. Silence. I could hear papers rustling. She was looking at the documents while she talked. Oh my God, she said, barely above a whisper. Then louder. I'm going to call your mother. I know, I said. I hung up. That was the first call. 51 more were coming. But not to me. What happened next is what my mother does best. Within 2 hours of Tammy's call, Denise had called 15 relatives. I know the exact number because 4 of them texted me within 30 minutes of each other. And 3 of them used nearly identical language. Cousin Bridget. Hey Lara, are you okay? Your mom is really worried about you. Uncle Raymond's wife. Denise said you've been going through something lately. She wants you to know she's concerned. Cousin Colin, who is always more blunt. Your mom says you photoshopped a bunch of legal documents and you're trying to destroy the family. She says you're having some kind of breakdown. Breakdown. That was the word my mother chose. Not, Lara has evidence. Not, there might be a misunderstanding. But Lara is having a breakdown. As if the documents were symptoms. As if the screenshots were hallucinations. I'd seen this before. Not at this scale, but the playbook was identical. Every time I'd ever pushed back, on anything, no matter how small, my mother's first move was never to defend herself to me. It was to call everyone else first and tell them the story before I could. By the time I opened my mouth, the narrative was already built. Lara is dramatic. Lara is ungrateful. Lara is confused. When I was 25, I'd asked to put my name on the utility bills since I was paying most of them. She said no. When I pushed, she didn't argue with me. She called Tammy that same night and said I was threatening to move out and leave her stranded. Tammy called me the next day, concerned. By then, the story was set. I dropped it. When I was 28, I brought up the mortgage, asked if I could see the statements, just to understand the numbers. My mother's eyes went flat. She didn't answer me. 3 days later, Bridget texted me out of nowhere. Your mom says you've been really stressed lately. Is everything okay? I hadn't told Bridget anything. My mother had already made the preemptive call. That was her system. She didn't fight you directly. She surrounded you. She got to everyone first. By the time you tried to tell your side, everyone had already heard hers. And yours just sounded like the complaint of a difficult daughter who couldn't be grateful. But this time, she had a problem she'd never faced before. You can't Photoshop a recorded deed at the Wake County Register of Deeds. You can't Photoshop bank wire records from First Atlantic Mortgage. You can't Photoshop a USPS change of address confirmation with a tracking number. And she didn't know I'd already handed everything to an attorney who was preparing a cease and desist letter at that very moment. She'd done this my whole life, turned everyone against me before I could speak. But she'd never had to do it against notarized documents and federal mail records. She called it Photoshop. She told the family I was having a breakdown. But here's the thing about bank records and county deeds. They don't lie. And she didn't know I'd already sent them somewhere she couldn't reach. 3 days after I sent the documents to Tammy, Scott Mercer called me. They've retained counsel, he said. A man named Craig Dalton, office in Garner. He's filed a preliminary response on your mother's behalf. What are they arguing? That you were a non-contributing occupant who voluntarily vacated the property, that the deed transfer reflects a long-standing family agreement. His exact language was, my client's daughter was a non-contributing occupant who voluntarily relinquished her interest in the residence. Non-contributing occupant. I let that phrase sit in my ear for a moment. Non-contributing. After 8 years of auto-pay mortgage transfers, after $148,000 in documented payments from my checking account, after covering the insurance, the property taxes, and 3/4 of the utilities, non-contributing occupant. That's what they filed. There's more, Scott said. They're citing the Facebook post as supporting evidence, or rather, the reaction to it. 568 people publicly confirming the narrative that you were, and I'm quoting from their filing, widely understood within the family and community to be a financial dependent. I almost laughed. My mother had spent 15 years telling every relative, every neighbor, every church friend, and every cashier at the Piggly Wiggly that I was a burden. She'd built that narrative methodically, one conversation at a time, one holiday dinner at a time, one phone call on speaker at a time. And now her attorney was using all of it. The Facebook post, the comments, the likes, the about time, as legal evidence that her version was the truth. She'd assembled a case against me for 15 years without realizing she was doing it, and now she was leaning on it in a legal proceeding. The Facebook post wasn't just a post anymore. It was Exhibit A in her defense. I have something for that, I said. I drove to Scott's office that afternoon. I brought a second binder. This one contained nothing but financial records. 8 years of monthly bank statements from First Citizens Bank. Auto-pay confirmations, the original email from the bank confirming the auto-pay setup. IP address traced to my personal laptop. Account holder listed as Lara Holt. Funding source listed as my personal checking account. Transaction history showing no deposits, transfers, or contributions from Denise Holt. Not one. In 8 years. Scott flipped through the statements page by page. 96 months of payments. Each one the same. Each one from me. This destroys their entire defense, he said. Non-contributing occupant doesn't survive 30 seconds against this. He looked up. But it does something else too. If they forged your signature on the refinance and the deed transfer, and then filed a legal response claiming you were non-contributing, when they knew you were paying the entire mortgage, this isn't an isolated act of fraud. This is a pattern, and it may constitute fraud upon the court. He closed the binder. Discovery came through this morning. Phone records between your mother and sister. He pulled out a printout, highlighted in yellow. 3 text messages from a thread dated 3 weeks before I moved out. He read them to me, slowly, one at a time. Text 1, Denise to Kylie. She's looking at apartments, we need to move faster. Text 2, Kylie to Denise. I'll file the mail thing this week. Text 3, Denise to Kylie. Make sure the signature looks right. Use the light table. Light table. My mother and my sister sat at a kitchen table, maybe the same kitchen table where I'd eaten dinner with them 1,000 times, and traced my signature using a light table. The kind you buy at a craft store for $15, the kind kids use to trace Disney characters. I thought about them sitting there, my mother holding the document flat, Kylie layering my real signature underneath, then a blank page on top. The light coming up through the glass. Kylie's hand moving slowly, tracing each letter. The L, the A, the R, the A, then the H, then the OLT. My name. Written by someone else's hand, on a document that would steal everything I'd worked for. They treated forging my identity like a Sunday afternoon project, like scrapbooking. And then I thought about Kylie sitting across from me 3 months before I moved, pouring rosé into my glass, saying in that warm voice, "You deserve your own place. Go live your life." She wasn't being supportive. She was clearing the house before the demolition. She was making sure I left before the paperwork was done. I told Scott, "Set the meeting." The meeting took place at Scott Mercer's office on a Wednesday afternoon, second-floor conference room, long rectangular table, 6 chairs, A pitcher of water nobody poured. On one side, Scott and me. On the other side, my mother, my sister, and Craig Dalton. Aunt Tammy sat in a chair near the door. She'd asked to be present. I didn't object. She had a right to hear this. She'd been lied to as much as I had. My mother walked in wearing a blazer I'd never seen, navy blue, probably bought for the occasion. She sat down, smoothed her sleeves, folded her hands on the table, and looked at me with the expression she always wore when she wanted a room to think she was the calm one, the reasonable one. Kylie sat beside her, eyes on the table, hands in her lap, silent. Craig Dalton opened. He adjusted his glasses, squared his legal pad, and spoke with the practiced confidence of a man who had been told one version of this story and believed it. My client maintains that Ms. Holt was a non-contributing occupant who voluntarily relinquished her interest in the property. The deed transfer reflects a prior family understanding. We see no merit in the claims being made and respectfully request that this matter be resolved without further escalation. My mother gave a small nod. Composed. Confident. Scott didn't respond right away. He opened a folder slowly and placed the first document on the table. 8 years of bank statements from First Citizens Bank. Auto-pay mortgage transfers from the checking account of Lara Holt. Every single month, 96 consecutive payments. He fanned them across the table surface with the deliberate patience of a man who had done this before. $148,000, he said. Paid by my client over the course of 8 years, mortgage principal, interest, homeowner's insurance, and property taxes, all verifiable through First Atlantic Mortgage and my client's personal banking records. Craig Dalton reached for the top statement, read it, picked up the second. His jaw tightened slightly. My mother's hands were still folded, but her thumbs had started moving against each other. Those are my payments, she said. Her voice was steady, but pitched higher than usual. She was the account holder for convenience. I gave her cash every month and she transferred it. Scott didn't blink. He placed the next document on the table, the original email confirmation from First Citizens Bank. Auto-pay setup request. IP address, my personal laptop. Account holder, Lara Holt. Funding source, Lara Holt's personal checking account. No secondary funding source listed. No cash deposits matching the mortgage amount in the account's transaction history. Not once. In 96 months. There is no record, Scott said, of any deposits, transfers, or payments from your client into this account. The mortgage was funded entirely by Ms. Holt's personal earned income. Craig Dalton set his pen down. He didn't look at my mother. From the chair near the door, Aunt Tammy spoke. Her voice was quiet but clear. Denise, you told me she never paid a dime. The room went still. Tammy looked at me. Her eyes were wet. I'm sorry, honey. I believed every word she said. My mother turned toward Tammy. Tam, don't. This isn't what it looks like. She's twisting. Denise. Tammy's voice was steady. I saw the bank records. There's nothing to twist. My mother closed her mouth. Her hands unfolded. She gripped the edge of the table. For maybe the first time in my life, I watched my mother sit in a room where she couldn't control the story, where the audience had already read the script, and it wasn't hers. Scott waited until the silence settled. Then he placed the next document on the table. He didn't rush. He laid the printout down flat, smoothed it with his hand, and read aloud. Text message. Denise Holt to Kylie Holt. Date. 3 weeks prior to the property transfer. Quote, she's looking at apartments. We need to move faster. He paused. Placed his finger on the next line. Kylie Holt to Denise Holt. Quote, I'll file the mail thing this week. Another pause. He looked up from the page and read the last one directly to my mother's face. Denise Holt to Kylie Holt. Quote, make sure the signature looks right. Use the light table. He set the printout on the table and folded his hands. The silence lasted 5 full seconds. Maybe 6. Craig Dalton stared at the printout. Kylie stared at the table. My mother stared at Kylie. And then my mother said the 6 words that ended everything. You told me you deleted those. Kylie's head snapped up. I did delete them. Then how do they have them? My mother said, her voice cracking for the first time. She didn't say the texts were fake. She didn't say they were taken out of context. She didn't deny writing them. Her only instinct, her very first reaction, was to turn on her own daughter and demand to know why the evidence still existed. In one sentence, she confirmed the conspiracy, confirmed the texts were real, confirmed Kylie's involvement in the forgery, confirmed they had discussed destroying evidence, and confirmed that the only thing she regretted was getting caught. Craig Dalton leaned back in his chair slowly, the way a man does when he's rethinking his afternoon. I waited until the room was fully still. Then I spoke. You called me a leech in front of 568 people, I said. My voice was level. I wasn't shaking. I'd rehearsed this in my car, but now it didn't feel rehearsed. It just felt true. You told Aunt Tammy I never paid a dime. You told every cousin, every uncle, every neighbor that I was a burden. And while you were collecting likes and comments and sympathy, while the whole family was laughing at me, you were forging my signature to steal the house I'd been paying for. I paused. Not for drama, because the next part mattered more than anything else I'd ever said. You called me a leech. I paid your mortgage for 8 years. I want to be very clear about who in this family was feeding off whom. My mother's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. Scott spoke. Calm. Final. The deed transfer will be voided and Ms. Holt's name restored. The refinance is under active investigation by First Atlantic Mortgage. My client intends to file criminal complaints for forgery, identity fraud, and potentially wire fraud. Full repayment of the $120,000 in withdrawn equity will be required, or criminal prosecution will be pursued. Craig Dalton cleared his throat. I need to speak with my client privately. My mother started crying. Not the way she cried on the phone with Tammy. That had always been a performance, controlled and timed. This was different. This was ugly. Mascara and shaking hands and a sound that came from somewhere lower than her throat. Kylie watched her for about 5 seconds. Then she turned to Craig Dalton. Then to me. It was Mom's idea, Kylie said. All of it. The mail, the account, the signature. She told me what to do. She said it was the only way to protect the house. My mother's head whipped toward her. Shut up, Kylie. But Kylie didn't stop. She told me to file the address change. She told me to open the joint account. She told me which notary to... I said shut up. The room went quiet again. 2 women who had spent more than a year conspiring together, planning the mail redirect, the refinance, the forgery, the deed transfer, the Facebook post, sitting 3 feet apart, turning on each other in real time. I didn't say another word. I didn't need to. The legal aftermath moved faster than I expected. The deed transfer was voided within 10 days. My name was restored to the property. The refinance was frozen by First Atlantic Mortgage, pending an internal fraud investigation. The forged signature was flagged, and the loan placed under review. Of the $120,000 that had been extracted, $40,000 remained in Kylie's portion of the Pinnacle Credit Union joint account, frozen by court order. The other $80,000 had been moved by my mother into an account at an offshore bank she'd opened 3 months after the refinance. $80,000. Already gone. Already hidden. My mother hadn't just stolen from me. She'd prepared her escape route. She knew, she'd always known, that I might find out. She stole the money anyway and hid what she could before the walls closed in. Denise Holt was charged with 2 counts of forgery and 1 count of fraud. Wire fraud charges were pending. Craig Dalton withdrew as her attorney within a week of the meeting. She was assigned a public defender. Kylie was under investigation for aiding and abetting and for federal mail fraud related to the unauthorized USPS address change. Her portion of the Pinnacle account was frozen. The salon in Cary let her go. The Facebook fallout had spilled into their Google reviews, and the owner decided it wasn't worth the controversy. The Dodge Charger, the one she'd bought with my equity, was parked in her apartment complex lot. She couldn't make the payments anymore. I heard from Tammy that Kylie tried calling Denise twice after the meeting. Both times, Denise hung up on her. The partnership that had taken over a year to build fell apart in 48 hours. When the stakes got real, my mother treated Kylie exactly the way she'd always treated me, as someone to blame. Aunt Tammy called me twice. The first time to apologize. Really apologize. Not the kind with a but in the middle. "I should have asked you," she said. Her voice broke on the word asked. "I should have picked up the phone and heard your side instead of just believing her. That's on me, Lara. That will always be on me." The second time, she told me she'd stopped speaking to my mother entirely. A few other relatives reached out. Some sent texts. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I shouldn't have liked that post." I responded to the ones that felt sincere. The rest I left on read. 2 weeks after the proceedings began, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. Out-of-state area code. I answered without thinking. "Lara." My mother's voice. Quieter than I'd ever heard it. "Please. Just listen." I didn't hang up. I'm not sure why. Maybe I wanted to hear what she'd say when there was nobody left to perform for. "I know you're angry," she said. "I know I made mistakes. Big ones. But I'm your mother, Lara. I'm still your mother." I'd heard that sentence before. My whole life. "I'm your mother." She used it when I tried to set a boundary. When I said no. When I asked why. "I'm your mother" was never a statement of love. It was a claim. A receipt she pulled out whenever she needed me to stop asking questions and start complying. "All future communication goes through my attorney," I said. I hung up. Block the number. She called from another number the next day. I blocked that one too. The third time, she left a voicemail. I listened to it once, sitting in my car in the parking lot of a gas station on Capitol Boulevard. She was crying. The real kind again, not the performance. She said she never meant to hurt me. She said the Facebook post was just venting. She said the house was always going to be mine eventually. She said, "I did it for the family, Lara. Everything I did was for the family." For the family. She stole $120,000 from me. She forged my signature twice. She had my mail intercepted for over a year. She publicly humiliated me in front of every relative I have, and she called it for the family. I deleted the voicemail. Not because I didn't feel anything. I felt everything. Anger, grief, something that wasn't quite sadness but was shaped like it. But I'd heard her cry before. Every single time I'd stayed. I'd believed her. I'd paid the next month's mortgage and told myself that eventually she'd see what I was doing, that one day she'd acknowledge it, that one day she'd look at me and say, "Thank you, Lara. I see what you gave us." She never said thank you. She said, "Leech. Not this time, not ever again. If you've ever been called a burden by the people who couldn't survive without you, I hope you know, their words were never about who you are. They were about what they needed you to believe so you'd stay." It's been 3 months since the meeting at Scott Mercer's office. I live alone now. 1-bedroom apartment in downtown Raleigh. Small kitchen with a table I picked out myself. Nothing fancy, just a table that belongs to me and no one else. I drink my coffee in the morning without anyone telling me I use too much sugar. The apartment is quiet. It used to bother me. It doesn't anymore. My name is back on the deed. I'm selling my share of the house through my attorney. The equity that's left, what my mother didn't manage to hide, will go towards starting over. A real start. My start. I don't talk to my mother. I don't talk to Kylie. All communication runs through Scott's office. I changed my phone number. I deactivated my Facebook account. Some nights, I still pull up the screenshots, not to hurt myself. I look at the names, the likes, the laughing emojis. I count them the way I counted them that first night on the cardboard box. 568. I think about the people who liked that post. Most of them never asked me a single question. They just saw my mother's words, saw everyone else agreeing, and added their name to the pile. That's how it works in families like mine. The person who tells the story first wins, and my mother always told the story first. The other morning, I was sitting at my kitchen table, early light coming through the window, coffee in my hands. The apartment was so quiet I could hear the building settle. I thought about the girl who walked into that title office at 22, who signed where they told her to sign because her mother asked her to, who set up the autopay and never questioned it, who heard herself called a leech year after year and believed that maybe it was partly true, who sat in the hallway listening to her mother tell Aunt Tammy that she doesn't lift a finger and chose not to walk in and correct it, who trusted her mother with the paperwork, with the filing cabinet, with the story, because she trusted her mother with everything. I don't blame that girl. She was trying to be good. She was trying to be the kind of daughter who helps without keeping score, the kind of daughter who doesn't need a receipt to prove she belongs. But here's what that girl didn't understand. In some families, the people who keep score are the ones who survive. And the people who trust without verifying are the ones who lose everything. I won't be her again. Not because she was wrong to love her family, but because she deserved a family that loved her back. I spent 8 years paying for a house I was told I didn't deserve to live in. I spent 30 years being called a leech by the people who fed off every dollar I earned. But here's what they never counted on. The girl they trained to be invisible was the same girl who kept every receipt. And receipts don't care about your feelings.